Hello, everybody. Suzanne Kellner-Zinck, Dungeons Hypnosis here to talk to you about, well, how to deal with hard or difficult to deal with relatives during the holiday season. Because as you know, for most families, this is a time when you get together with family. And for some of us, it's more challenging than for others of us. I celebrate all you families that are healthy and happy and love to get together for the holidays. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But there are those of us who have some challenges in this area. So here are some ideas to help you to deal with the situations that may arise. Number one, if you have an older relative who wants to tell you how to go about raising your kid or is interfering with your interactions with your kid, especially if your kid is like a toddler or a younger kid, the best thing to do is just to remind them that this is your child and they have no say in the matter, and that your child will do as they're told by you, nobody else. And sometimes that shuts them down, sometimes it gets them a little aggravated, but the most important thing is to draw a boundary, because if you do not draw that boundary, it's going to be consistently a problem going forward forever and ever, and you don't want to do that. So just nip it in the bud, as we say in America. Second thing that can happen is you might have someone who's kind of antagonistic toward you. And I used to go through this a lot when I'd spend time at my in-laws, because unfortunately my father-in-law was an anti-Semitic bastard in many cases. And he would drag up all kinds of really negative commentaries toward Jewish people because I was raised Jewish. And I'm proud of my Jewish heritage, actually, to tell you the truth. And he would do all kinds of things to undermine and be negative. And generally the way that I had to deal with it was to let him know that it's too bad he was so ignorant about anything to do with anybody other than drunk Irish and English people. He was actually originally born into an English family. They abandoned him when he was very young, and he got adopted by a really beautiful family, actually, which he never fully appreciated, unfortunately, based on what his adoptive, the biological daughter of this family had to say, as well as my mother-in-law, quite frankly. He's long gone, and it's okay. Hopefully he's more at peace where he's at now than while he was alive. Then there are siblings that just love to bring you back to shit that happened 40 or 50 years ago, in my case, and maybe not as many years ago, but still stuff that has nothing that's relevant now that you're adults. And the best way to deal with that is to basically ignore it. That's what I did. Because, quite frankly, what one understands is that as you get older, and you recognize the fact that parents are not perfect. You know, nobody is. And I can tell you that the sisters, I have two older sisters, they both had kids, and they have issues with their kids. I don't know any parents who don't have some kind of issues with their kids, you know, but it's best that we be a lot more humble about who we are, where we're at, and especially after the parents are gone, there's no point to bring any of this crap up in my estimation. So I guess the best way to handle this one is to say, you know, they're not even alive. We don't need to go there. And just end it, like right there. And then there's other situations where you might have a person in your family, like my maternal grandmother, unfortunately. I do believe she had borderline personality disorder, which my mother also suffered from, both long gone today. And she used to come and cause a lot of fights during the holiday season. Interestingly enough, whenever she was over to cook Passover with my mom and with some of my grandmother's friends, they got along really great. And whenever they played Scrabble, they got along great. But when those two things weren't happening, it was like war between the two of them. And I never could understand why it was that my mother was hell-bent on having her come over to the house, consistently causing trouble between us. In my case, I had a big mouth, and I basically told her exactly how I felt, that I didn't want her around, and that she was a bitch, and I didn't want her around me, and I didn't want her around our household. She heard that from me on a couple of occasions over the years. Not necessarily the most appropriate way of handling things, but do understand I was a teenager at the time, and teenagers don't really have impulse control, quite frankly. So, as an older person, what I would just say is be a little bit nicer about it and just say, you know what, this isn't really anything that I want to talk about at this point in time. And truthfully, it has no bearing on my relationship with my own mother, but it could have a really negative bearing on my relationship with you if you don't change the subject. So that's why I would deal with that. And if there's people who are arguing or acting out in a really weird way, which sometimes happens, when families get together, I guess my best advice to you is just stay out of it. Just stay out of it. You don't need to get in the middle of any of it. Only if it's something that is directly affecting you in a really bad way. Because this is the other thing, folks. We hold in too many of these things, it ends up eating us up from the inside out. We don't have any boundaries. We're not able to really set boundaries in our lives. We always feel like we're being taken for granted or being run over by these people. And that's not a healthy way to be. So you need to really negotiate these situations in a way that works most healthfully, especially emotionally, for you, to be able to let people know what you just did is not okay. And to have a go from that point of view. Unfortunately, my father-in-law never changed his ways. So what ended up happening there was I had a phone call with my mother-in-law. This is going back, oh my God, like 40 years or more now. No, it's 20 years more now because I was in my 40s. I remembered it like it was yesterday. And I just told her, you know what, I love you dearly, but I'm not willing to be in the environment with Senior because he was the senior in the family, whereas my ex was the junior. So I basically dehumanized him by using his senior name and not even his own name. And I just told her, he's antagonistic, he's nasty to me, he's nasty to my ex, and we don't need to be around him, being an adult. And she's really respectful of that. So what we did was we would just meet up with her for meals at a restaurant halfway between where we lived. And that worked out really, really well. Or meet her in Boston when we were living in Arlington, and she was working in Boston at various attorneys' offices. She was a paralegal. So there's ways to work things out as long as you're practical, realistic, and you're speaking your truth, because no one can speak your truth like you. But do it as diplomatically as you can and don't act out like I did as a teenager. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. Although, interestingly enough, when I was a kid and I talked to my grandmother like that and other people were around, not one person in my family said anything negative to me about my behavior, not one, because I believe I said what they would not. And sometimes that's just the way it's got to be. I hope you found that these ideas are helpful. And in the description, I have a year-end special for a 6-hour VIP day. And all the content is there. I look forward to hearing from anyone who's interested in doing that. And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.